This is where populism does gain a foothold, you see. I mean,
Yeah.
I live in Washington, D.C., and I've lived here for 25 years, and the amount of money that has come into this city. I mean, it's great for those of us who live here, if we've already got if we already bought property, which I did
Mm.
25 years ago. Um, but at the same time, it just feels like just a hideous incrustation of low-level corruption that I think has helped and aided and abetted the kind of populism that Trump has absurdly, of course, harnessed.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think unless the elites begin to exercise some sense of civic responsibility. When I see someone like Leslie Moonves, for example, of CBS, saying, you know, Donald Trump may be terrible for America, but he's been great for CBS. I mean, at some level, screw you. I mean, really, you're a disgrace. Are you a citizen, or are you a parasite? Similarly, the way that Jeff Zucker is only now saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have opened the spigots and let him have his rallies live on CNN for hours on end, day after day. But it made us a lot of money. I mean, at some level, when people see the elites behaving in this way, they have every reason to despise them. When they see the elites who have, for example, conducted and supported a war that was a disaster, and no one has really been held accountable in any core way for it. When they see the financial elites screw up massively, and in such a way that they plunge millions of people into poverty and economic insecurity for decades, and still demand the same amounts of remuneration. In fact, they're earning more now than they did before. At some point, these things will count, and they will destabilize the entire system that we believe in. Trump is right. The elites in this country deserve a shellacking. And my view is that the only way forward is if elites begin in this country to start treating their responsibilities as members of this republic seriously.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
citizens, not just money makers. And I wrote a piece about Plato and his analysis of how a tyrant emerges out of democracy. And one of the crucial conditions for Plato is that the ruling elite becomes more interested in money than they do in the survival of their own republic. And
Yeah.
those conditions are absolutely in place. And that's a absolutely classic example where one of the members of the elite with lots of money says, I am going to call out the other members of the elite, and I am going to represent you,
Right.
and I am going to expose them. And there's an element in which Trump has exposed the bankruptcy of Republican and Democratic neoconservative foreign policy. He's exposed the bankruptcy of a globalist economic policy that has no concern whatsoever for many people in this country who smell the condescension and who rightly are repelled by it. And my view is that if the elites don't hear this and don't adjust their own behavior, make some bloody sacrifices, then Trump is just the beginning of a populist radical movement that threatens the entire country. Similarly, if the elites don't understand the danger that this kind of income inequality will do to a democracy,
Yeah.
then they're going to lose that democracy and they're going to lose their free markets.
I share the view that wealth inequality is a huge problem. And when I wrote about it, sometime around the time of the financial collapse, I was amazed at the vitriol that I got back in defense of, no ethical concern at all around wealth inequality. I mean, just people, this was, I'm sure these were not especially wealthy people attacking me. There's this very strange religion of the self-made person in America
And look,
where,
in general, I'm very sympathetic to that view. But look, when that leads to a situation, and it hasn't always happened. There have been many situations in which this hasn't happened, in which the ability to earn lots of money has been great for
mm,
everybody. But when a combination of globalized economics, massively increased benefits to people who are smart in this economy,
mm,
the massive sorting and sifting of the population, in which large numbers of able people are moving into super zip codes, in which we've created this bubble that is essentially exploitative of the rest of the country, then you're in real danger of tipping the entire system upside down. I mean, I think conservatives of all people, conservatives who want to conserve our free market system and our democratic system, need to be more concerned than anybody else about this kind of wealth and income inequality, because it will destabilize and delegitimize the entire system. And what we're living in right now is clearly a moment in which the entire system is illegitimate in the views of many Americans. Now, Trump has amped this up to 11 in a way that is utterly irresponsible,
Yeah.
reckless, and fact-free. But that there is a ground for this, that there is a real reason for this resistance, is undeniable, and I think we need to get real about that.
Yeah. Well, also the way that technology is of necessity dragging us into a future, which could be a very good future if we play our cards right, where there are jobs that are disappearing that are never coming back, and they're not going to be replaced by new jobs.
And people know this. They're not fools. They're living in a way that people like you and me are not living in some ways, on the edge of this abyss.
Yeah.
They can see their futures disappearing.
I
And
mean,
it's not because they're
just this morning, Tesla just released a video of the next generation of cars. So this is literally a car that's available now, right? That is fully autonomous. So that, I mean, you see this car leave the garage, drive on side streets, stop at stop signs, avoid pedestrians, recognize red lights versus green lights, drop its occupant off at an office at Tesla, and then go find an empty parking space. Driverless cars are here.
and what they're gonna do when you look at white working class men in this country, so many of them are involved in driving
Yeah,
things.
yeah, it's the most common profession apparently
Yeah,
for
and
white men
and
in this country.
and the truth is that people look at the elites and say, "Who's really worried about this? Who there is really listening to us?" And the truth is, almost no one is. I mean, you think I take NAFTA. NAFTA I supported, and I think in general it has been a good thing. But that it has had extraordinarily disparate impact in this country. That some populations have lost leverage, clout, and income because of it is undeniable. And the fact that these economists didn't really predict that, and if so far as they did predict it, didn't really take it that seriously. Well, they would have if it were their jobs. And I think the isolation increasingly of the elites and the distance between them and most people in this country has led people to feel there's no one
Hmm.
who can represent their voice there, that no one represents their interests. And I think it's incredibly important that they hear that this is something that is concerned, which is so that even though you could make an argument for, say, TPP, you have to acknowledge that politically and socially, this country hasn't it may be not able to absorb this kind of rapid change, that may need to slow it down for the sake of our social stability, for the sake of our political integrity. And that's what you're seeing in Britain, for example, where
Hmm.
Brexit happened, which is a perfectly, in my view, and here you didn't have you'd have a couple of loony demagogues like Boris and a barrage of Nigels,
Hmm.
um, but no, there wasn't a Trump figure. There wasn't, and this was a genuine feel that the elites in this country are doing things with no regard for many of their fellow citizens. That's pushed Britain into an existential crisis at this point, and I think we ignore those trends at our peril. We have to figure out how to address them. The paradox is, of course, we don't know how to address this question. We don't currently have an answer to this problem.